Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey folks, it's Matt Zachary, and welcome to VAX On, a weekly segment of my podcast Adaptations, right here on the Offscript Media Network.
Hey, I'm Alura Nanos. I'm a lawyer, a journalist, a mom of a teenage narcoleptic, and a professional big mouth.
Lou and I go back 30 years as best friends, and we're here to have fun and bring you a layperson's guide to what the hell just happened this week in healthcare as America gets its vax on and shows COVID the door.
Matt gets me. He knows I'm tired, annoyed, and sometimes pushed to the brink by the intense chaos of our lives right now. We're here together to learn, complain, and include you in the conversation.
So join us on Twitter at VaxOnPod and share your stories and grievances using the hashtag VaxOn. Conspiracy theorists and haters shall be neutralized on sight.
All right, Matt, let's get at it.
Hey, Matt, it's almost tax day. How are you today?
April 15th, 2021 is tax day, although I heard they moved it to May 15th because
no, it's May 15th.
Quarantine, COVID, crapness.
You know, I have to tell you, there's something about that sort of cracks me up because I feel like if you're an accountant and everyone is working from home, I don't understand why quarantine would mean that now you need longer time to do the same work. I honestly don't. I mean, I'm happy for the accountants, but I don't really understand why it would require extra time.
Well, maybe it's, I don't know. I'm nothing there. You're right. You just wait. You win the argument.
Here's what I imagine the answer is. I imagine the answer is, hey, taxes are annoying and it's annoying to have to get your shit in on time. So we're just going to give you one less thing to get annoyed about since you're already irritated about quarantine. Well, that's what I'm just deciding.
I don't want to be too glib or too ignorant, of which now I'm about to be glib and ignorant. But if you are unemployed or you are suffering from COVID or still working or not working, whatever you're doing, you're right. You may still have the same amount of time to prep your shit for the year, no?
I don't know. There's less demands. There's less other demands on your time. So I sort of feel like, I don't know, getting your taxes in shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, we're going to plead the 5th, right? You're a lawyer. That's the right one to plead?
Right.
Okay.
Sure. Well, we'll plead the 5th.
Okay.
But yeah, so, I have to tell you, Matt, I'm feeling sort of pensive or, I want to say philosophical, but more
Mike
psychological. No, definitely not Mike Pensive. No, I'm feeling like I'm starting to think about all of these things that have been different for me during this time and wondering how long they're going to be that way. So like I watched a movie the other day and got very anxious while I was watching it because there were these crowd scenes and people were really close together and not wearing masks.
But it was a movie.
Right. But it was a movie and it was taped before quarantine. But that's like this weird lingering result. And I was watching, by the way, so have you seen this show with Stanley Tucci that everyone's talking about?
I have not.
Okay, well, you're just missing out. Stanley Tucci goes around Italy and tells you how great it is and how great the food is, and it's just wonderful. But what was really interesting is that some of the episodes were shot before COVID and some of them were shot after COVID. And they actually put a disclaimer on the screen before some of the episodes that said, by the way, this episode was taped before COVID, to sort of let you know that's why no one's wearing a mask in the episodes.
That's fascinating.
It is. And it just struck me like, how long is it going to be before they're like, they're minor, but they're sort of lingering effects of the trauma of going through this period. I wonder how long it's going to last.
But I mean, at some point, are we going to have disclaimers in front of every film that was shot in the next coming year and a half saying, disclaimer, everyone in this film has been fully vaccinated?
Right? Like, who knows? But at the same time, that psychological effect, it's there where you notice, at least I do. I notice when people are in fiction where I'm watching it and I see that they're close together. Have you had distress dreams about the masks?
What?
I have had stress
What?
dreams. Yeah, I have. I've had stress dreams about being someplace without my mask. Like my typical unprepared dream has now morphed into a quarantine dream of showing up someplace without my mask.
In fear of getting sick, or are you aware you've been vaccinated in your dream, or is this like an inception and an inception within an inception?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. I was researching, and so this phenomenon is like actually pretty widespread, and medical professionals are reporting having a lot of nightmares about like ventilators and respirators and people being on them and not having enough ventilators for the amount of patients or them not working, because the medical community has been so traumatized. So that, this is happening. I've had lots of friends tell me that they've had COVID specific nightmares.
I mean, that's not surprising. It has been extraordinarily traumatic mentally, physically, for everyone in the front lines at every hospital around the country to have to manage and deal with this. It's one of those things where you just can't imagine, unless you know somebody who's been in the space and they tell you how actually traumatic it's been.
Absolutely. And even those of us who don't work in the medical community have our own kind of trauma. It might be less or so, but I always take it back that I wonder, and I call it the potholder effect. I wonder what my potholder effect is going to be. And what I mean by that is my grandmother lived through the Depression, as did, so many of our grandparents. And there were lingering effects from living through that time period. And I know that for my grandmother, one of her lingering effects was that she never threw anything away. I remember in her house, she had potholders that were knitted out of the red string that goes around bakery boxes.
Oh my.
Because she wouldn't throw it away and she had to find a way to use it. So I wonder, what is the COVID version of that going to be?
Well, I have wonderful dreams these days because I downloaded the New York State COVID passport app, and it asked me those questions you get when you try to take out a loan, like what street were you born on, and what was your mother's blood type in 1977 or whatever. And you upload your date and everything, and you get this little fancy QR code. It's not quite a QR code; it's like more fancy than a QR code.
It's fancier than a QR code.
It's a SR code. It's a ZR code. I'm making that up. It's some kind of it looks like static on a TV after the color bars go off at 1 a.m. It looks like,
and does it launch a menu? They call the QR code.
It's we're here. So yeah, it looks like TV static, but it's an app on your phone that goes into like Apple Wallet or Google Wallet, and you could show it at different places that are actually asking for proof of vaccination. And I'm reading all these places that they're starting to do it, like we talked about in previous episodes, the cruise ship. They're going to want to see that thing when you register. When you go to maybe a Broadway show, when they cordon off Thursdays are VAX only, you show the thing, right? And I find it intriguing that some people are like, they're going to find me. Guess what? They know where exactly the fuck you are at any moment of any day anyway. So what the hell?
Right. Like if you have Easy Pass and an Apple Watch, you're pretty much already fucked on them finding you front.
Yes. Any mobile phone, they know where you are. You can turn off location, they still know where you are.
I learned that from Jack Bauer on 24, that they passively triangulate you. I still don't know what that means, but it's real apparently.
That's just good writing.
It is. It really is. Whenever I do legal commentary on homicide cases and they get the cell phone experts, I always want them to say passive triangulation.
I mean, that's the best use of the word triangulation.
It really is. It really is.
I would just try to use it in any other context. Hey, I'm in what part of the supermarket are you? I'm over here. Let's triangulate. And meet over in pork.
Yeah. It never doesn't work. It's always good.
It's our second segment, folks. Surprise!
I know people were busy timing us for the segments. I do have some bad news for you on the cruise ship front that we will get to in a moment.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it is an oh dear. But before we get there, we have some other bad news to talk about.
Oh, do we now?
We do. So earlier today, there was some terrible news coming in about the Johnson and Johnson vaccine. So I say that this is terrible news, not because medically it seems all that bad, but just because sort of news cycle wise, it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah, they pulled the J&J, right?
Yeah. So apparently 6 women reported blood clotting effects after having received the Johnson and Johnson vaccine. And in response, the FDA and the CDC paused the Johnson and Johnson vaccine while they investigate further.
Not good.
Yes, not good, right? We never want to hear that anyone had either side effects or, some kind of terrible result after getting any vaccine. However, these are 6 women in 7 million doses. So on one hand, we don't even know yet if this effect came as a result of the vaccine. Because when you're talking about like 1 in a million ratio, it's possible that these people had health problems anyway, and it was entirely coincidental.
But it just takes one to create like a massive mob of crazy people that think it's going to kill them too.
Exactly. And I mean, and not at all to minimize what may have been a severe health effect for someone. I'm not trying to minimize that because that's serious. And it sounds like, at least from the kind of shallow research I did on it, the FDA and the CDC pausing a vaccine is nothing totally outlandish. It's something that they do all the time whenever there's a potential side effect from a vaccine that they want to look into more. So it's not like this is some kind of unprecedented action on the part of the CDC and the FDA.
Wait, are they going to do some kind of autopsy on these women to see if they have genetic abnormalities? I mean,
Also, the women didn't. Only one of them passed away. So the other ones had issues, and one I think is in critical condition, but the other ones I think are okay. And I mean, I guess we'll have to see. They'll have to go through probably an exhaustive health history of these women. I'm very interested to know like where this is going to land. I'll tell you kind of my own personal connection to what's going on with this. So what happened to these women were that they had some kind of event of thrombosis, which is blood clotting. And all through COVID, there has always been this kind of underlying undercurrent of information where COVID is related to blood stuff. There have been studies related to less COVID transmission for certain blood types. I have a bleeding disorder, and I know that people with my bleeding disorder, the studies have shown that they experience far less COVID symptoms if they do indeed catch COVID. There's been some good medical evidence that something about the COVID virus is like connected to blood clotting, blood type, and that kind of thing. So it wouldn't be totally outlandish to think that maybe there really was a side effect that had to do with bleeding and clotting. We'll have to see. Already, it's like I'm bracing myself for what's going to happen now.
So they're going to start screening people before they're vaccinated to check their blood type and correlate that against trends in blood type and vaccination?
I mean, we'll see. I think that before they get anywhere near screening anyone, there would have to be some kind of actual determination that the vaccine really was the cause of this event for these 6 women. And we don't know that yet. But if you remember, Matt, last week we talked about that one factory, or was it a factory? I don't know. I'm using the wrong word.
It was like one warehouse that was mixed the J&J with the AstraZeneca.
Yeah, well, AstraZeneca uses that same platform for their vaccine, and there have been problems. It's not being used here, but there is some suspicion that whatever that thing that they both share is the thing that may have caused this thrombosis. So we're going to have to see where this goes. I do know that Johnson & Johnson's stock went down a little bit. And hopefully this doesn't stop people from getting vaccinated generally.
But I mean, they did this in Europe and then they reinstated it, correct?
That they reinstated
They
what?
paused the vaccine in Europe and then they reinstated the vaccine in Europe after determining whatever it is that they determined. I mean, with complete and absolute empathy and condolences to anyone who has been lost because of the vaccine, how do we square that against, like you said, 7 million people have gotten J&J and 6 people have suffered this particular circumstance? Where do we square that circle?
Right. I mean, and I'll tell you, 1 in a million is certainly an odd that I would be okay to take, because if you think about the death statistics of having COVID, they are so much worse What I forget what the statistic was, but it was, you're talking about somewhere in the hundreds, not in the millions,
Right.
that for dying from COVID.
Like 1 in 8 people who live in New Jersey have died from COVID.
I don't think it's quite that bad. Thank goodness. When it comes to medical treatment, vaccines, anything like that, we're always talking about a cost benefit analysis. We're always talking about, which risk do you take on? Because getting up and walking out of your door is a risk, So to me, even if this vaccine is what caused these women to suffer, you're still talking about a 1 in a million chance. Actually, it's a less than a 1 in a million chance. So, really, you have a higher chance of getting struck by lightning. So I kind of feel like I'm okay with that. And I hope it doesn't deter people.
So what is the process that the FDA and the CDC have to go through to vet this out before they reinstate it?
That's a great question that I have no answer for.
Google it, listeners. Just Google it.
I have no idea. But yeah, that's happened. It just happened today. It just happened a few hours ago. So I imagine that within the next few days, we'll probably get information about what's going to happen. What did they find? What kind of study did they do? It's something really to look out for. But this is, really breaking news today. So, we'll have to just follow it.
And indeed we shall.
Are you ready for the bad news about the cruises?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm already pre-disappointed. This can only go uphill at this point. Are they canceling all cruises around the world?
Oh, no, not yet. But this is like some only in America flavored drama going on. So remember, we talked about how some businesses and arenas and places like that are going to use vaccine passports, and they're just going to set their own rules that, maybe there's an all vax section, or maybe you can't use their facilities unless you're vaccinated. Well, the cruise industry has been shut down in the US by the CDC. The CDC a while back issued what's called a no-sail order. So cruises have not been allowed to leave from US ports unless you're talking about tiny, tiny cruises with like 200 people on them. But regular, big, like Royal Caribbean and Norwegian and all those cruise lines, they have not been allowed to leave US ports at all.
Wait, so regardless of there being this business incentive for these cruise lines to do the vaxxed only, and they're selling out, these are cruises that leave from ports that are not in America.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that initially when I read that story about them selling out. They were all leaving from foreign ports because they can't leave from the US. And I thought I heard that maybe some of them were booking for like well into the future out of US ports. But no one knows when the no-sail order is going to be lifted.
So they're flying to Mexico or flying to Europe or flying to the Caribbean to leave on a boat from there because they can't leave on a boat full of vaccinated people from the US.
Right.
Okay.
So obviously the cruise industry is like way hot and bothered about this because they're like, hey, people are on planes, people are in offices, people are ready to go back to Broadway. And like, when can we sail the cruise ships? So, it's a fair point, honestly. It really is. So at least one cruise line, it was Norwegian, who I think also owns Royal Caribbean. They said, listen, we have a whole plan for how we're going to make this ultra safe. We're going to require that every single person that boards is vaccinated. We're going to require that every single employee is vaccinated. And the CEO went on TV and he was asked, well, what if you have an employee that can't get the vaccine? And he answered, that employee is not going to work then. Like, too bad. Like, all 100% vaccinated, end of story, right? So the cruise companies, their argument is like, hey, if we implement this incredibly strict policy, there's really no reason that we should still have the no-sail order. And hey, CDC, could you please lift it?
And?
Okay, so we don't know yet what the CDC is doing because here's what happened. You may remember lots of cruise ships leave out of Port Canaveral in Florida. That's like a big place that cruises leave out.
Wait,
right?
This is turning into a Florida thing, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, dear God. Like last time, the fucking Florida thing. Okay.
Right. So Florida's governor made an executive order that banned private businesses from requiring proof of vaccination. So in other words, Royal Caribbean, if they're operating in Florida, they're not allowed to do it. They're not allowed to say you have to be vaccinated.
That's like a double screwed blue and tattooed at the same time.
Can you imagine how annoyed they must be? They went through all of this trouble to develop what they thought was a super safe plan. They're able to try to sell it to consumers like, hey, go get your vaccine and then you can come aboard. And then Florida's like, no, you're not allowed to do that.
Have we, without making this too political, have we found out, or in your spelunking in the news, the rationale behind Ron DeSantis' decision to do this?
Yeah, the rationale is actually pretty clear on the face of the executive order. And by the way, it's not just Florida. There are 4 states that have done it. Utah did it. Florida did it. Well, I can't remember the other 2 states now, but it's 4 states. And I think Idaho is one of them. And they've done it in various ways. And in fact, one of the states, I believe Idaho, in their executive order, they actually referenced New York State. In other words, they wrote a law that said, we know New York State is doing this and we don't like it. In the various executive orders, they've all said, we think that this infringes on citizens' freedom. We think that it's interfering with individual liberty for anyone to require proof of vaccination. Now,
is that unusual?
Asterisk, it's not super unusual to say that a certain thing infringes on liberty. What is unusual is that you have really some states going so far and to say that, even private businesses can't do it. Because it's not, they also said government entities cannot require proof of vaccination. And that is something that is within their control. But to force private businesses, really it's to disallow private businesses from making their own rules about who they will do business with. I think it's insane. And I don't understand what the possible logic is when you have a business that brings so much revenue to a state to then cripple that business by stopping it from doing something that would potentially save its industry.
So this doesn't apply to Idaho or Utah, being that they have no coasts, says me who remembers geography. Right. Florida-specific conversation here. None of this makes any sense to me, but if we're just going to say #Florida, it doesn't really solve the problem. Do you remember, because I don't, the type of government, whether it's oligarchy or communism, I don't know what it was, where the government decides what business can and can't do?
That's not fascism?
Is that fascism? I'm out of my isms. I don't know where I'm at now, but it's definitely not Democratic or Republican either way. It just seems like it's
definitely not. Yeah, like it's not like free open market capitalism. It's not that.
I just always love like open markets, free markets, capitalism. No, not that kind, but this kind. Open markets, capitalism.
Let me tell you, watching the CEO of Norwegian Cruise Lines on CNN the other day, I literally thought he was going to explode on the screen. He looked like, that Disney cartoon with the 4, what is it, Inside Out, with like the 4 emotions, the guy that's anger and he pushes the plunger and his head just like goes on fire. That is what the cruise guy looked like, because you could just see he was so frustrated after coming up with this very complex and difficult plan to get the business back off the ground and then just being blocked from doing it. Your heart had to just go out to him and all the employees. So book your cruises, people. On the lighter side, here's some ads.
Culture evolves at the speed of light, just like your financial needs. When it comes to your money, Credit Karma keeps you in the know and ahead of the game. You can count on Credit Karma to keep up with your financial needs as they evolve. We'll help you monitor your progress and give personalized recommendations so you can make strides towards your goals and find your way to money. Make sure you're on the right track, no matter where you are on your financial journey. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on.
So we're back, and I'm reading here that the HIV vaccine, yes, the HIV vaccine is closer than ever after new trials show promising results. How is this related to coronavirus and the pandemic?
Apparently, there was an experimental vaccine developed by the AIDS Vaccine Initiative, and it is getting a 97% response rate among the participants in a phase 1 trial. This is huge.
Is it related biologically to any of the mRNA work they've been doing for coronavirus?
So it seems like, yes, the mRNA vaccine is somewhat of a novel approach in HIV. Now, here's what I don't understand, and maybe smarter people can help me out with this. The COVID vaccine is not the first mRNA vaccine that has ever existed. That technology has been around for quite a while. HIV has also been around for quite a while. I don't understand why this was the first time that they tried that kind of vaccine with HIV. Like, why aren't they trying everything?
Honestly, I don't know enough about the HIV virology space to compare it to what I know the progress is in the cancer space, but I do know that viruses have been used in many cases in clinical trials in pediatrics to look at how we advance the way that cells are manipulated to spark an immune response in the body.
Yeah, I mean, and what I know is that mRNA vaccines are different than other vaccines because they don't introduce a weakened virus. Instead, they teach the body how to make a protein that triggers the immune response. So it's like slightly different. But I just don't really understand, like, well, why hasn't this been done before? I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure it's not like they just didn't think of it, or they just didn't feel like trying that one. But it really seems like it's good news because the big problem with the HIV virus is that it mutates really rapidly. And that's why it's very difficult to like track it down. And apparently mRNA vaccines work better with those type of viruses than do other vaccines. So, I mean, let's not forget HIV is still a global epidemic. It's still considered an epidemic by the WHO. So any kind of help in the land of HIV is so important. And if it's one good thing to come out of the COVID pandemic, I mean, that would be spectacular if we could then find a cure, a vaccine, something that is going to significantly help HIV.
And speaking of more good news, there's always been this chaos and cacophony around, where do I get vaccinated? And this website is terrible. And my dad's 80 and can't use the internet. And along comes this intrepid entrepreneur named Nick Muter, who invented something called the COVID-19 Vaccine Spotter. It sounds like it's solving problems. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this guy, Nick Muter, he created a website and it tracks appointments all over the place. And it comes up on your screen, wherever you live or wherever you're searching, and it shows you a green dot if there's an appointment available, a red dot if there's a site with no appointments available, and a gray dot if there's a site but they're not sure if there's any appointments available. It tells you which vaccine is available at which location. So, interesting anecdote. Our producer on this show told me that yesterday she checked what was available around her, and there were several sites around her that were offering appointments for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Well, she checked back in today, and those same sites did not have the appointments anymore. So it's updated every 30 minutes. It sounds like it must be pretty accurate because as soon as the FDA paused the Johnson & Johnson vaccines, those appointments disappeared.
There's got to be like 9 guys on hamster wheels figuring this out using like pen and paper every hour. How do you connect this to EMRs if you're just a guy with a website? Anyway.
He's not just a guy. He's a software engineer. They're magical.
Oh, then he's not a guy. How does some wizard software engineer figure this out? Well, he's a wizard software engineer.
He's not even taking any money for it. He's donating any donations to UNICEF. Come on, you got to love this guy.
But I think that solves a lot, doesn't it? It helps a lot of people find out what's around them. It's kind of like there used to be an app called Near Me, right? Remember Near Me? It would show you all the things going on socially in your neighborhood, like a picnic here or an improv everywhere there. Near Me.
That's like Bumble or like Tinder, right?
Tinder without the dating, but for vaccines.
Wait, do you know that people are putting their vaccination status on the dating websites?
So you mean like de-identifying their vaccine ID cards and adding them to their profiles?
Yes, exactly. But yeah, isn't that cool though? I saw that. I was like, wow, that's amazing. The world has changed. Quarandreams and Tinder vaccines.
So this concludes our broadcast day on this episode of VAX ON. Elura would like to wish you
sweet Quarandreams to all.
Sweet Quarandreams. Good night.
That's all for today, folks. If you like today's show, the conversation continues on Twitter at VaxOnPod. That's VAXON Pod. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tell all your friends to listen. VAX ON is a product of Offscript Media. Our executive producers are Matthew Zachary and Elura Nanos. Our senior producers are Brianna Seeley and Andrew McDowell. It is mixed and edited by Brianna Seeley. Our theme music is by Chair Model. For advertising and media inquiries, email media@offscript.com. Hit us up at contact@offscript.com to share comments, feedback, and make recommendations. For more information, visit offscript.com.